Hey everybody, and welcome back to the channel. HTM here. So we're getting very close now to the end of 2019, and I wanted to start some discussion looking ahead at 2020. And specifically, I want to talk to you about what chapter content you want to see next year for ESO. Now, there are plenty of rumors around already regarding what the next chapter for the game will be. There's also some clues that I think the developers have been dropping here and there, which to me seem to have a pretty decent likelihood of being true. Now, obviously none of this has been confirmed yet though, so keep that in mind. Also, this video will contain some spoilers for the Dragonhold DLC, so if you don't want to spoil that, don't watch this video. So I think a good place to start this discussion when talking about where ESO might go next would be talking about what's left on the world map in terms of areas still to be explored in the game. So I have a pretty interesting map I was able to find on the ESO forums. This comes courtesy of a user named Jigen. It's also a bit old, but what he did was he overlaid the traditional world map of Tamriel with the zones that we have in the Elder Scrolls Online. Now, I really like this because it shows you exactly which parts of Tamriel have been added into ESO and which parts still have not. The one exception here is Elsewhere, because Jigen created the map back in 2018, so keep that in mind. So using our map here kind of as a guide, I want to outline 5 major regions that could potentially be used as a new chapter in ESO. Going clockwise from the top, those regions are Skyrim, Hammerfell, Cyrodiil, Black Marsh, and Eastern Morrowind. Now, just looking at all of these regions in terms of size, I think all of these roughly fit the criteria for the size of a zone you might see being used as a new chapter. Roughly, they're all the same size, and they're also comparable to previous chapters like Elsewhere, Somerset. So I think these are all possible. And again, this is just speculation, it's just kind of my opinion, but I think we can probably narrow down the list based on some other factors as well. One of the first factors to think about is if some of these regions have been used before on other chapters or DLCs in ESO. And if it has, I think that would probably make it much less interesting for us as players, making us less likely to buy that as a new chapter for the game, which I think also makes it less likely for ZeniMax to focus on as chapter content. So with that mindset, I think you can probably exclude Eastern Morrowind because we already had a Morrowind chapter a few years ago, if you remember that. I think you can probably also exclude Black Marsh for now as a new chapter because we also had the Murkmire DLC. Again, I don't have anything against these areas. I'm sure they're great. I just think they've already been done in ESO a little bit, to some extent already, so it's probably less likely for us to go back into that general region since we've already been there before. So of the 3 remaining regions, I'd say that Cyrodiil probably is the less interesting out of the 3. I mean, a lot of Cyrodiil has been done already. We also had the Imperial City DLC quite a while back. I don't think you can rule Cyrodiil out completely as a new chapter. I could see it maybe be an option later, like 2021 or 2022, assuming ESO makes it that far, but I don't think it's the best choice for next year. That leaves us with 2 options that I think are pretty strong for the next chapter of ESO, and that's Skyrim and Hammerfell. Now, both of these have very rich histories and backstories, making them perfect candidates for an extended chapter storyline. I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that the final decision on where to go next, it's probably not going to come down to those stories though, or to characters. It's probably going to come down to simple marketing more than anything else. I mean, when you look at these 2 areas, one stands out as vastly more popular among Elder Scrolls players and Elder Scrolls fans. And I think this is what the game developers at ZeniMax are going to be considering above any other factor when you look at next year. I mean, just think back about how ZOS has built previous chapter releases for the game. You can go back several years to the release of the Morrowind chapter for ESO and how that brought in a huge influx of new players to the game, because just the idea of exploring Morrowind again got players super psyched and nostalgic for that classic Elder Scrolls experience. I think the developers at ZeniMax really want that same kind of hype again. And really the only content that's going to do that for sure is Skyrim. Say what you want about the game of Skyrim, it is the most popular Elder Scrolls game in history. And it just makes sense to put some of that content in Elder Scrolls Online to tap into that. Now, I also think there's another very good reason why the next chapter will not be Hammerfell, and that actually has to do with the Elder Scrolls 6. The Elder Scrolls 6 is the next single-player Elder Scrolls game, possibly releasing in 2021, maybe 2022. And if you've been following this game like I have, you probably have heard that the rumored region for this game is, you guessed it, Hammerfell, home of the Red Guards. Now, ES6 is not confirmed to be set in Hammerfell, but I think there are some pretty strong signs pointing in that direction. For example, there was a trailer released by Bethesda that showed a bird's eye view of the region for Elder Scrolls 6, which does seem to have a similar look and the landmarks in the right place to be Hammerfell. There's also been a recent trademark dispute where Bethesda's trying to own the title Redfall, which kind of sounds like Redguard and Hammerfell if you just smashed them together. I don't know, it is still a lot of speculation, but I think there is some weight to it. Anyways, the reason why I bring it up is that I don't think Bethesda Game Studios would like ZeniMax to basically preempt them by creating Hammerfell content in 2020 in ESO if ES6 is coming out the next year in 2021 and will be covering the exact same area. I'm sure the timelines are different probably, but I think it could still be seen as basically stealing the thunder from Elder Scrolls 6. Now, I don't want to rule out Hammerfell completely from coming to ESO. I think what might be more likely is a concurrent release with Elder Scrolls 6, where both ESO and ES6 do Hammerfell content in the same year of 2021, 2 years from now. So basically, ESO would be the hype man to the Elder Scrolls 6, giving just, like a taste of the area during quarter 1, quarter 2, quarter 3 of 2021, and getting players ready to jump completely into the new game when it releases maybe at the end of 2021 in the fourth quarter. So going back to Skyrim in 2020, I think it makes the most sense in terms of marketing, in terms of nostalgia, and it's not going to hamper any other Elder Scrolls releases coming up around the same time. And there's also some hints dropped in the Dragonhold DLC of ESO 2, kind of like teasers, if you will, which mentions Skyrim in various ways. I think these also are pointing us to a Skyrim 2020 chapter. One of the first we saw was Sai Sahan talking about Lyris during the prologue to Dragonhold. Apparently Lyris is still alive. She has some unfinished business that needs resolving. Now, we know that the ESO writers really like to bring back past characters for further adventures and new chapters. Just think like Sai Sahan in Dragonhold, Abner Tharn, Razumdar, and Somerset, so on and so on. So maybe Lyris will be the focus character in the next chapter, and we know where Lyris, aka Snow Lily, is from, which is Skyrim.
Yes, she did. For a time. I hoped she would join me in my efforts to reclaim the wisdom of the Dragon Guard. But something else called my Snow Lily away. Something Lyris felt she had to do. I'm afraid she did not say. Perhaps it was something she wished to do alone, or perhaps she was afraid I would forsake my duties and join her. She did promise to write, though. I eagerly await her letters.
In addition to this, you have several characters that mention Skyrim specifically at the end of the Dragonhold DLC, including Cadwell and other characters. Now, this has been done in the past to kind of point us as players to upcoming areas for the next chapter, and I think that's what we're seeing here again. So when it comes right down to it, I think we'll be heading to Skyrim in ESO's next chapter, which I love because I think half of my characters are Nords anyways. So personally, I like it. But of course, this is all still speculation, nothing confirmed yet, and I could be totally wrong. So let me know in the comments section what you think. Do you think Skyrim is the obvious choice for the next chapter like I do? Or do you think something else maybe is more likely? I'm really looking forward to your comments on this one. Let me know what you think. As always, if you enjoyed the video today, don't forget to crush that like button. It absolutely helps the channel get noticed here on YouTube and grow, so I always appreciate that. Thanks again, everybody, for watching today and participating in the discussion, and I will see you around in the next video.